I stood in my kitchen screaming at my 7-year-old over spilled cereal, and I watched her little face crumble as tears started rolling down her cheeks. In that moment, I saw myself through her eyes, and I was horrified. That night, I secretly recorded myself during our evening routine, and when I listened back, I heard myself yelling, snapping, and using a harsh tone at least 15 times in 2 hours. I didn't even realize I was doing it that much. Then a child psychologist showed me what yelling actually does to a child's developing brain, and I committed to stopping that day. It's been 8 months since I yelled at my kids, and I'm going to share exactly what changed and why understanding the science made all the difference. If you've yelled at your kids and felt terrible about it, or if you're stuck in a cycle of yelling that you can't seem to break, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because what I'm about to share will change how you see those heated moments forever and give you real tools to stop. Let me start with what's actually happening in your child's brain when you yell, because once I understood this, I couldn't unknow it, and it completely changed my behavior. When you raise your voice at a child, their brain perceives it as a threat. The amygdala, which is their alarm system, immediately activates. Stress hormones flood their body. Their heart rate increases, their breathing gets shallow, and their thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, goes completely offline. In that moment, your child is in fight, flight, or freeze mode. They literally cannot process what you're saying, learn from the situation, or make better choices. All they're experiencing is fear and overwhelm. But here's what devastated me when I learned it. When yelling happens repeatedly, it doesn't just affect the child in the moment. It changes their brain structure over time. Studies using brain scans show that children who are regularly yelled at have differences in brain development, particularly in areas related to emotional regulation and stress response. We're not talking about occasional raised voices and stressful moments. We're talking about yelling as a regular parenting tool. That kind of chronic stress actually alters how their brain develops, and there's more. Research shows that children who are yelled at regularly have higher rates of anxiety, depression, behavioral problems, and lower self-esteem. They're more likely to yell at others, including their own children someday, because they're learning that yelling is how you handle frustration and exert control. The cycle continues unless someone breaks it. When I learned all of this, I realized I had a choice. I could keep yelling because it felt like I had no other option in overwhelming moments, or I could do the hard work of changing my patterns for my children's well-being and our relationship. I chose change, and I want to share exactly how I did it, because if I can stop yelling, anyone can. I was a chronic yeller. I'm talking multiple times a day. But I haven't raised my voice at my kids in anger in over 8 months. The first thing I had to understand was why I was yelling in the first place, because it's not really about my kids' behavior. It's about my own inability to regulate my emotions under stress. I yelled when I felt overwhelmed, when I felt unheard, when I felt like I was losing control. The yelling was my dysregulated nervous system, not a parenting strategy. Once I saw that, I could start addressing the real problem, which was me, not them. I started tracking what happened right before I yelled, and I discovered my pattern. There were always warning signs. My jaw would get tight, my shoulders would tense up, my thoughts would start racing, and I'd feel heat rising in my chest. These physical signals are my body's way of saying you're escalating. But I'd been ignoring them and going straight to explosion. Learning to recognize those early warning signs became my first line of defense. Comment below right now and tell me honestly, how often do you yell at your kids? Once a day, multiple times, rarely? There's no judgment, just community. The second thing I did was create what I call circuit breakers, things that interrupt the pattern before I reach explosion. When I notice those warning signs now, I have 3 go-to moves. First, I physically leave the room for 60 seconds. I tell my kids, Mommy needs a minute. I'll be right back. I go to the bathroom, splash water on my face, and take 5 deep breaths. 60 seconds is enough to bring my nervous system down from red alert. Second, I have a mantra I repeat. My kids are not my enemy. They're learning humans who need my guidance. This shifts my mindset from adversarial to supportive. Third, I visualize my child's brain. I literally picture their little amygdala firing and their prefrontal cortex going offline, and I remind myself that yelling will only make that worse. These circuit breakers sound simple, and honestly, they felt ridiculous at first. But they work because they interrupt the automatic pattern. Yelling had become a habit, an automatic stress response. I needed to insert something between the trigger and the response, and these circuit breakers did exactly that. The third thing, and this was huge, was lowering my expectations and picking my battles. I realized I was trying to control way too much, and that constant need for control was what was stressing me out. I made a list of what truly matters: safety, respect, and basic cooperation. Everything else became flexible. My kids' clothes don't match? Not worth the stress. They didn't clean their room perfectly? Good enough is fine. Dinner took longer than I wanted because they were moving slowly. We'll adjust the schedule. This doesn't mean I became permissive. It means I saved my energy and firmness for things that actually mattered instead of being at battle level over every small thing all day long. When you're not fighting 100 tiny battles, you have more capacity to stay calm during the few big ones. The fourth thing was changing how I communicated expectations. Instead of yelling at my kids to hurry up or clean up or stop fighting, I started getting down on their level, making eye contact, and speaking firmly but calmly. I'd say things like, "I need you to put your shoes on now, we're leaving in 2 minutes." Clear, direct, calm. And then I'd follow through with natural consequences if needed instead of escalating to yelling. "We're leaving now even if you're not ready, and you'll carry your shoes to the car." No drama, no yelling, just calm follow through. The fifth thing was repair, because here's the truth, I did slip up. In those 8 months, there were 2 or 3 times when I raised my voice more than I wanted to. But instead of spiraling into shame and giving up, I repaired immediately. I got down on my child's level and I apologized sincerely. I said I raised my voice at you and that wasn't okay. You didn't deserve that. I was feeling overwhelmed, Dee, and I made a poor choice. I'm working on handling my feelings better. Can you forgive me? Every single time, my kids hugged me and said yes. And those repair moments actually strengthened our relationship. Here's what changed in my home after I stopped yelling. My kids became calmer. They weren't walking around in a constant state of stresses waiting for the next explosion. They started listening better because I was communicating more effectively. They showed me more respect because I was showing them respect. Our home became peaceful in a way it had never been. And I became a parent I was proud of instead of one I felt guilty about. But there's something else that happened that I didn't expect. I became more emotionally regulated in all areas of my life, not just with my kids. Learning to manage my stress response with them taught me skills I now use in traffic, at work, and in difficult conversations with other adults. Stopping yelling made me a better human overall. I want to address something important. If you're in a situation where you're so overwhelmed, so burnt out, so under-resourced that yelling feels like your only option to survive the day, please hear me, you're not a bad parent. You're a struggling parent who needs support. Consider reaching out for help, whether that's therapy, a parenting group, asking family for breaks, or whatever resources might be available. You deserve support, and your children deserve a parent who has the capacity to regulate. If this video is giving you hope that you can break the yelling cycle, please share it with another parent who needs this message. So many of us are struggling with this quietly, carrying shame that keeps us stuck. Drop a comment and tell me what your biggest challenge is when it comes to staying calm. Or if you've already stopped yelling, share what worked for you. Let's support each other. And make sure you're subscribed because we're building a community of parents who are committed to doing the hard inner work that creates peaceful homes and healthy kids. Thank you for being here, for being honest about your struggles, and for being willing to change. Your kids don't need perfect parents. They need parents who are trying, growing, and repairing when they mess up. You're already doing that just by watching this video?